afternoon and welcome to Rubbin Minds. My name is Isabella Adeliji. It's the last Sunday of 2024, and for this episode we cast our minds back to some of the major events that shaped Nigeria in the year 2024. We look at some of the personalities and of course some of the lingo that 2024 gave us. So much steeze, so much composure. But let's start with some of the most talked about events of 2024. Joining me for this very important conversation is a social commentator, Dapo Adaramewa. Welcome to Rubbin Minds.
Thank you for having me.
So when you look at the year 2024, I mean, something that has affected every single Nigerian is the economy. And one key thing is that devaluation of the Naira. We saw the Naira slide and slide and slide. And I think the questions Nigerians are asking is, could this have been better managed? And is there any hope in sight? Because at some point the Naira came down, but it was just temporary. And then it went back up. So what do you make of this economic conundrum that we found ourselves as a nation in?
I believe it could have been handled better. In terms of the impact, let's start with the impact it's had, right? You don't need to think very hard to see how it has affected everybody's life. For me, as a businessman as well, you literally watched half of all your savings, just more than half, just waste away in terms of the actual purchasing power of whatever you had stocked up, and how that has impacted your ability to run your business, particularly when you're thinking about expansion and growing your business. And let's not forget that, you know, each business employs people, and how that has impacted other people in terms of the purchasing power that people have, the ability to employ more staff. And not just that, it's even gotten to the level, even interest rates are affected as well. So in terms of impact, I think all round it's been very, very, let's just say, disastrous. Looking around and seeing what people are going through now truly is heartbreaking, you know. Everybody has felt it. Now, in terms of how it could have been managed, I think definitely there was room for there to have been a gradual process, right? I know the president in his last interview said, you know, it had to have been done that way. But in reality, we need to consider the impact of policies on people, right? Because the policies are there to serve the people. Now, if the people are paying the highest price for these policies, then what are we talking about here, you know? So there should have been a gradual, you know, devaluation of the currency.
Yes, and I agree with you there, because there are so many things that then happened. We saw increase in tariff, we saw the price of petroleum products go up, and it just had that ripple effect. Like you said, people's savings just literally disappeared overnight. Now I want us to move to politics, and one of the big events were the protest, the End Bad Governance protest. This is not the first time that Nigerians are hitting the streets in the past couple of years. I mean, I easily remember NSARS. If you put both of them together, would you say the End Bad Governance protests were effective, and did they achieve the objectives they set out to?
I would say what we witnessed in those two protests is different strategies of the leadership of the country. One was brute force and murder, and another was strategy played out in front of the whole world. You know, we saw how the protests themselves were squashed, you know, maybe not with as much force, but subtle little impediments to ensure that it never really caught fire. And that's all well and good, but the truth is the emotions that the Nigerian people are carrying is there more than ever, right? And most protests, if we're going to be realistic and look at the world as a whole, most protests that are ever successful in creating any kind of, you know, change are often not planned. They don't have a start date. It's just a natural eruption of people's emotions. Now, what happened with the end governance, does that mean it will never happen? Like, would people never get to the point where they've had enough? Of course not. We will see that if that anger is not dealt with, it will show itself in different ways. You know, people are suffering. They have to express that somehow. The president finally gave an interview, fantastic, but it took, what, 18 months for us to have a sit-down and conversation? In the middle of everything we're going through as a nation, your priority should be, you know, reaching out to the people, making us understand, even if you are taking us somewhere, help us understand where your vision is and speak to us, because you are now our leader. So show us what you want to achieve and be there to guide us through the process so we know that you're feeling our pain, not withdraw for a long time and eventually just come give one interview and think that solved the problem.
No, it definitely doesn't solve the problem, and there's just that clamor for the people to hear directly where are we going, whether it's the economy, the polity, the security. But let's move on to a lighter topic: entertainment. We've done economics, we've done politics. Now, Nollywood is huge, and something that filmmakers in recent times have really enjoyed is the popularity their films are getting on global streaming platforms like Netflix, like Prime, Amazon Prime, and of course you have also Showmax. When we now look at the year 2024, we saw Netflix, for example, mention that they are not going to continue commissioning releases from Nigeria. So they will license, and the advantage of that is cinema is now really booming. We've seen the 1 billion mark just in December alone. The Nigerian box office crossed that 1 billion mark. So what do you make of this for the filmmakers, for the people across that value chain?
I think it's beautiful, and if anything, it shows the resilience, the creativity, and the commitment of Nigerians to achieve great success, right? You look at not just the film industry, but also the entertainment industry as a whole. We're making leaps and bounds. The world is hearing our voice. It shows that we have what it takes to be successes as a people, right? What we need is a conducive environment in which this can, flourish. And what they benefit in large part from is the fact that the environment is conducive for it. If the government was to impose certain severe taxes on that sector or put, oh, you need this license and make all these things difficult, we will see that sector again, suffer, right? But we're making leaps and bounds, and it shows us that Nigerian people are creative, we're problem solvers, and we are reaching the world. We just need to be able to extend that to other sectors of the economy as well.
So with the box office, the fact that Nigerian filmmakers now have to take their works to the box office and not rely on, say, Netflix to commission new releases, or even Amazon Prime, who have departed from Nigeria. As a result, people are trooping to the cinemas. People are going to watch Nollywood movies. You're seeing Nollywood movies go toe-to-toe with the biggest blockbusters from Hollywood. I mean, what do you make of this? Is this something that is going to be the trend? How can the government really catalyze this industry so that, we're not talking oil anymore, we're now talking entertainment?
I think it's a beautiful thing. It's good to see Nigerians supporting Nigerians, buying Nigerian products, watching Nigerian movies. That in the end is the main goal, right? We cannot solely rely on bringing in things from other countries. At the end of the day, it's dwindling our own local industry. So in terms of what the government can do, I think just continue more of what they're doing, ensuring that there's little government interference in all of these kind of things. I don't know if it was this year, there was some controversy about some images that were used and, some rights group, obviously erupting in anger. I think that was a music video by Davido where he depicted a certain sect, and people were calling for all sorts. Like, we need to pull back away from that, allow people to express themselves creatively, and just continue to support that sector. And, I believe we'll make more leaps and bounds in that area as well.
Yeah, I think something like filmmakers will also appreciate from government is just having the infrastructure, because you see some series, they're going to other countries like, say, Mauritania to go and shoot because of the desert. Meanwhile, here in Nigeria, we have deserts in Yobe State in the north, but insecurity continues to remain a problem, not just the infrastructure. And I just want us to look at the security situation in Nigeria for the year 2024. Despite the increased allocation of funds to security, we still have massacres happening. We still have a lot of insecurity. People are not going to the east during Christmas time. What should the government be doing to solve this issue once and for all?
I think the state of insecurity, although it has improved, you see, the difficulty oftentimes is admitting that we're making some progress. But often when you're talking about, I think 100 and something people were killed in a massacre recently, when you're talking about those kind of losses, can you really celebrate any progress at all? Because people are still dying. There's so much left for the government to do. And, in terms of not just funding the security forces, but ensuring that they are where they need to be. And by that, I'm referring to the fact that I believe there was a release, I don't know how true it is, but something around the fact that we have a lot more police officers protecting the rich and affluent Nigerians than we do actively in these zones, right? Which is a worrying trend. We should be able to stamp out corruption, which is very, very important in these sectors. I have policemen as friends, and some of them complain about the fact even down to their basic uniforms is not provided, and you have to go source for that yourself. And then also the pay that many of them are receiving is not enough. We all like to criticize the police, and I was there at the bad governance protest, and even the NSAS protest, right? But do you know how difficult it is for you to give a man a weapon and pay him 40, 50,000 naira a month? How is he supposed to survive all of that? Survive on that, and then you've put in his hand a means by which he can get money. You've put in so much power in this individual, and you can't provide for his basic needs. Those are the kind of things that are weakening our security infrastructure. And poverty. Let's not deny the fact that when there's poverty, crime tends to go in that direction as well.
So definitely a multi-sectoral approach needed to really tackle that issue of insecurity. I mean, we're looking at all the top events, like the top 10 events that happen in Nigeria. And we've looked at the economy, the devaluation of the naira, end bad governance. We just discussed the security issue, looked at the entertainment. And I want us to go back. The next major thing that happened in 2024 when it comes to entertainment is the Grammy nomination. Somehow that seems to be like the highest seal of approval for artists all over the world. And 2024, Nigerians did not disappoint. What does that tell you about the evolution of our music?
Our music is touching the world. It's everywhere. I traveled recently, and I was able to hear Nigerian music just playing on the radio, and I was so proud of myself. I was so proud of the fact that that's us, right? We're winning. We're winning. The world knows who we are. We have our celebrities going as far as India, performing shows. It's a thing of great pride to see that we're making those leaps and bounds. And, just more of the same, I'd like to see us win more of these Grammys, not just get nominations, but it's phenomenal, and there's nothing but pride, as a Nigerian, when you see Nigerians making leaps and bounds, representing the country in a positive light. Because part of what we do, we suffer from negative kind of, reputation, all these kind of things that people say about Nigerians. But it's good to see that we're breaking the stereotypes, and we're shining not just for ourselves, but for the whole of Africa as well. Because, people might not want to admit it, but we're at the forefront of Africa. We are leading. We're leading Africa as a whole, and if we do more of that leadership, we could be the America of Africa. We could lead and make changes in our continent.
Yeah. We'll look at another headline for 2024, and this again is something that has touched a lot of Nigerians, which is, the hunger virus, because that is something that from the north to the south, even the rich are complaining because people that are dependent on them are not able to feed their families anymore. You're hearing not one. And then you also look at this hunger virus being compounded by natural disasters like the flooding in Maiduguri. And we come back again to say, look, it's all about the economy. Solve poverty, solve hunger. And instead, Nigerians are being asked to carry this burden. And I think the question on everybody's lips is, where do we go from here? Where is this magic cure to this hunger virus? Where will it come from? And when do we get that respite at the end of the tunnel?
I'll tell you where it is not. It's not in rice. You see, wherever there's a problem, flooding, send rice. Terrorist attack, send rice. Hunger, send rice. People just generally complain, send rice. Christmas, send rice. We've been sending rice to Nigerians for decades. It's almost like a national policy. It doesn't work, right? We need to fix the infrastructural issues that are causing hunger. Nigerians are stamping each other to death to get rice, to get basic feeding necessities. I'll give you a perfect example. You mentioned the flooding, right? Are you aware that the dam that burst had burst 2 times before that, as recently as 2012? if it burst in 2012 and killed people then, why are we waiting till it to burst again some years later? Why are we not finding permanent solutions? And that's the problem we have in Nigeria, right? We come around, we cry with the people, we release fantastic statements about how we feel for them, then we send them rice, and we don't fix the infrastructural issues, right? People were killed in a stampede. We're going to send them more rice,
yes.
right?
So definitely not rice. It's more rice of an infrastructural problem, and maybe even different countries coming together to address the elephant in the room with this dam issue. And we still have 2 headlines I'd like us to cover, and we have less than 2 minutes. So the next big one is the National Assembly. A lot of great bills that have gone through there, but some of the important bills are just stuck, and we're wondering why. Like, when you need the National Assembly to rise to the occasion, they're not exactly coming forth, but when it comes to, say, the national anthem, they're quick to do that.
Yes, because the national anthem does not cost them anything, and it's a good rallying point, But when we're talking about fundamental bills, for example, the tax reform bill that is currently going through the process now, it's normal in any democracy for there to be back and forth, because if a bill comes, it's bound not to benefit everybody evenly, right? And it's good for there to be discourse, but it's also good if the people in the National Assembly understand that their priority is Nigerians. Ultimately, it's about Nigerians. Their budget hasn't been severely impacted by everything that is going on. So serve the people that you're there for. And some members are doing that, but many are too, it's all internal politics.
Yes, there's a lot of controversy around the National Assembly, because on the one hand they say, oh, we're cutting down our salaries, we're cutting down our the things we receive, the perks of the office, but yet it doesn't appear to make such a difference in the grand scheme of things. And how can we even hold them accountable to such pronouncements?
It's very funny in terms of there's many avenues. One of the key things I think we have seen in this government that this government fully doesn't understand is that, yes, we understand that certain mistakes were made by governments of the past. We understand. You are trying to correct it. Okay. But why is it that it is only people at the bottom level that are paying the price? We still have all the agency, all the parastatals. There was a report a few years ago that recommended we cut the agencies in half. This was by the former chief of
yes, I think the Orosonya report.
report.
I think there's so much they can be doing with their time, but instead we see them in controversy. Sadly, our time is up now. Thank you so much for your contributions.
Thank you.
We wish we had as much time to go through some of the events that shaped Nigeria in 2024, the top 10 events, the devaluation of the Naira, the End Bad Governance protest, the movie industry, box office with the streaming giants, the Tamua massacre and insecurity in Nigeria, Grammy nominations, hunger, looking at the flood in Maiduguri, and the hunger virus, and of course we wrapped up with the National Assembly controversy and some of the bills that are still stuck at the National Assembly. Still so much coming on Rubbin Minds. We'll go on a quick break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Rubbin Minds. Now, today's episode is all about the events that shaped 2024, the people that Nigerians talked about. In fact, when you put their names in the search engine, they'll come out, and also some of the slangs that 2024 gave us. The first segment, we looked at the events that shaped Nigeria in 2024. And for this segment, we're looking at the most talked about Nigerians in 2024. Joining me for this very important conversation is Hassan Olanrewaju, who is a project manager and social commentator. He's joining us from our Abuja studio. Hassan, welcome to Rubbin Minds.
Thank you very much.
So let's look at the most talked about Nigerians. I mean, when I think about social media, for example, where a lot of young people spend their time on, you'll always probably see this individual speaking out for the people, sometimes very controversially. And I'm talking about Very Dark Man, who has sort of become the voice of the people in 2024, jumping on issues for the people. When you think about Very Dark Man, what comes to mind? What are some of the highlights of the year he had? And why do you think Nigerians feel the need to go and report certain cases to Very Dark Man for him to come and speak and get involved?
I think Very Dark Man is he's a very interesting person, and I also think some of the reasons why people feel they should always report to him is because Nigerians have seen that the security parastatals in the countries don't work. So in the country does not work. So Very Dark Man has been able to build a brand for himself by, shaming certain characters on social media into the right, if you would use that term, into the right character. So you can look at some of the things that he has done throughout the year. Some good, some not so good. But generally, I would consider Very Dark Man a force to reckon with. Not necessarily my most ideal person, but he is a force to reckon with in the Nigerian social media space. Especially some of his not so good antics was the when he went head to head with the with Fowles and his father's family over some certain slander. Also recently, he was saying something on social media about his new NGO that 180 million has been missing from the organization's website. But generally, I think Very Dark Man has been able to create that niche, which I feel is then deviating at the moment. So it's a slippery slope to look at the man and the brand itself, because again, on one hand, he seems to call out certain characters, and then on the other hand, he seems to be in that same variation of the characters that he calls out. So he's a very, very interesting fellow, very, very controversial fellow. Not my favorite fellow, but then again, I do feel a lot of people do. He has a lot of influence on many people, and it's also, how would I put it? It's also a result of how our country is shaped, because again, many people spend their time on social media, and so he has been able to then prove to them, that he can call certain people to order, and some people maybe not so much. So
and he's been able to
2024 has not been the best of years for him.
Yes.
Yeah.
From what you've said, like, hate him or love him, he has leveraged social media to use that voice. I want us to go to another person on the list. We've looked at Very Dark Man, but let's go to government. One of the ministers that has been talked about in Nigeria throughout 2024 has to be Olubunmi Tunji Ojo. And, when you think about getting a Nigerian passport, you're thinking, oh, I need to give somebody money. But he came in there, he, cut down the backlog when he came to passports. When you think about him, what do you think stands him apart from other ministers who are probably working just as hard, but we don't get to hear about them in the media?
I think Olubunmi Ojo is one of the best ministers that President Tinubu appointed. Since 2023, he has been able to do a lot of things, and majority of people know his antics and his work around the passport backlog. But as the Minister of Interior, your work expands beyond that, beyond just the passport, which I have had a couple of friends say very good things about. I have a friend who works in Lagos and was like, oh, it was relatively easy to get my passport. A lot of people have been commending, but also when we look at the issue around even the interior issues, you would see that he has been paying a lot of attention to it. One of the key things is also the prison reforms. He has been able to then pay much attention to some of the issues that affect, issues of interior, and so I think he is a shining star in the not so bright administration of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And while many people didn't give him chance, or we never really thought about him as one of the best when the appointments were being made, I feel he has made a very huge mark on on the Nigerian landscape within the last 1.5 years that he has been in position, from making sure that passports are gotten in time, corrections and other things around him. You could see that even though the changes are there, it's much more. You can see it more than most interior ministers that we've had in the past. Nigerians have a way of saying that interior ministers are just public holiday ministers, but Olubunmi Ojo has gone further and further to show that, Nigeria can work for Nigerians, and some of the things that affect Nigerians both home and abroad, he has been able to sort that out. I mean, majorly around the passport issues, trying to get it, trying to remove the bottlenecks, the backlogs around it,
yes.
Digitizing the process around it, and also, I mean, again, beyond just passports, the Nigerian corrections,
you mentioned
prison reforms, you can see a lot of work that has been done around that too. Yeah.
Yes. We're still talking about the most talked about Nigerians in 2024. We've looked at Very Dark Man. We've looked at the Interior Minister, Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo. Now we want to look at the entertainment industry, and you have Toyin Abraham. I mean, she's put out lots of movies, but she tends to enter the media a lot of times because of her staunch support for this administration, and that has polarized some of her fans, where they can't understand why she continues to support this this administration despite all the challenges, and to an extent some will say that it has also affected perhaps the reception of her movies in cinemas and the likes. Why do you think Nigerians can't separate someone's political allegiance from their craft?
I think it's almost impossible to do that. Your people's political, whatever it is, ideologies, their political decisions does not only affect them, it affects the entirety of people. And, again, as somebody who is as influential as Toyin Abraham, I think she should understand the fact that whatever decisions she makes in the political realm would come back to affect other parts of her life. It's very, very interesting. I will give it to her that she has been very, very vocal in her support of the current administration, in the support for the current president. However, it's not news that it will come back to affect majority of of the other parts of our life. For example, the people that that watch movies the most are young people. The people that will go to cinemas to see movies are young people, and they don't seem to be happy with the current administration. And she seems to double down on the fact that this is where she is. This is where she's pitching her tent to it. It's a thing of principle. If you are willing to then stick to it, some things will suffer for it. I hope she gets out of it, but at the moment, I think it's almost impossible for people to separate people's political decisions from their personal lives. It would always come back to haunt them, whether for good or for bad, and would see whatever decision that she's making, how it affects, our movies moving forward. I was having a conversation with some of my friends this morning, and these are some of the things that came into play. Movies coming out towards the end of the year, some not getting the traction they hope it would get, and some, just blowing everywhere and everything like that. Politics is a very, very important part of our lives, and the moment you take a political decision, I think you should also be able to understand how it affects other parts of your life. And for influential figures, these are some of the penalties they need to pay. Sometimes it's for good, sometimes it's for bad. You support the right person, or you support the person, and then, it paves way for you. Sometimes you support some people, and it doesn't burn well so far for you. But so far, I think Toyin Abraham is not doing badly in terms of, still staying on people's mind. She's still one of the most talked about Nigerians in 2024. How it now translates to business profit for her, I think that needs to be seen maybe in the first quarter of 2025, but give it to her. I like the fact that she has stayed with, a political conviction. Might not be what is your own, it might not be your own favorite things to hear, but, she has stuck with it so far, which is very, very rare with Nigerians. Yeah.
We still have quite a number of Nigerians to talk about because they have remained top of mind throughout 2024. We've looked at entertainment, politics, and I want us to look at something that really takes all Nigerians to a really good place, which is soccer. And it's always great when we see a Nigerian soccer star, football star shining globally. And for this year, it has been about Ademola Lookman. And what do you make of his success for not just Nigeria, but Africa? For some people, they're just hearing about it. But the diehard lovers of football, it was just a matter of time for him to get this recognition for all the years he's put into the game.
I think the first time I saw Ademola Lookman was in 2015. He was playing for Charlton Athletic, if I'm not mistaken. And somebody had tweeted about him that this is a star for the future. Like, like the rawness of his talent was so much, and then the person was then appealing to the then Nigerian Football Federation president that do not let this boy play for England because obviously he's British. And he has had a couple of struggle across his career. I know he has played for Fulham, for Everton, and he has just struggled. But he seemed to have found his rhythm in Atalanta in Italy, which is a very good thing for him. I watched the game against Bayern Leverkusen a couple of months ago, where he totally destroyed a team that that was playing unbeaten all season long. And it's interesting to see for Nigeria as a whole. I think 2024 and 2025 has been 2023 and 2024 has been a very good year in terms of football that we played. Nigeria came second in the African Cup of Nations. Very, very hard defeat to swallow, but it also shows improvement in Nigerian football. We played very, very interesting football. Osimhen was the footballer of the year for 2023. Now another Nigerian is the footballer for 2024, which is very, very interesting. We hope to see what Ademola Lookman would do in the coming years. I see he has been up to a lot of things. I watched a game against Real Madrid and I was like, wow, this guy is really good. So yeah. Hopefully he does better, and then he keeps getting better over the years.
Yeah. We still have some personalities to talk about. I think the one that has been on the lips of everybody from beginning of the year till now has to be the #1 man in the country, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. This administration, this is their second year in, and the expectations are still very much high. And going by the economic indices, Nigerians want more and they want it now. How has he been able to just really fill in those shoes, those huge shoes of being president, and also rising to the occasion so that Nigerians can feel him and his administration?
I think the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has been lackluster at the very, very best. It's been filled with a lot of controversies. A lot of people should manage, while we keep seeing government, pumping billions of nairas into things that, we feel like, the people should get and everything like that. So, honestly, it's not been a very good 2 years for the administration, with a lot of things happening. Maybe because of also the kind of policies they've been implementing, the kind of projects they've been embarking on. It seems to be shrouded in a lot of controversy from the highway that is supposed to go from Lagos to Calabar. Again, nothing has come out of that. The 21 billion renovation of the vice president's house and palace, and then you wonder, why are you telling people to manage when you can pump in 21 billion into the vice president palace? I can't remember who mentioned it, and then said the former vice president was living somewhere. This is not the moment for us to start putting those kind of monies into this thing. And his last interview, while many have hailed it to be very, very important, yes, I feel it was very, very good that he came out to then address the people, but there was really nothing to take home from that interview. It just meant like, after almost 2 years, you are coming to talk to us for the first time, and majority of the things that were said were not really what resonated with the people, especially around, there was a very, very controversial part of what he said, where he said he has a friend who had a number of Rolls Royce, but now uses Honda. It doesn't bode well for, the president of Nigeria and for the people of Nigeria. It's been a very, very difficult period for him, leading the country of 200 million plus people. But I hope that, the president would, in 2025, look at some of the policies that has been put in place and see how, some of the low-hanging fruits that he can touch upon, which can affect lives of people who are at the grassroots. People are really suffering in the country, and
Nigerians.
You don't need to say anything about that. So I hope 2025 it will be able to touch on the low-hanging fruits and affect the majority of the people. Yeah.
Yeah. And very quickly, so not too far from the president, in fact, related, the son of the president has also stayed in the media throughout 2024. And I'm talking about Sheyi Tinubu. He has become a focal point of this administration. You see people go on social media to talk to him, to get to his father. What do you make of this almost new role of the son, the office of the son of the president, if you may?
I don't think the role is new. I just think now it's much more pronounced. people have occupied that role in, you know, over the years, but this is the most pronounced that we've seen it. And I also don't think it's about getting to his father. I also think there are a lot of machinations going on there, a lot of conspiracy theories or rumors, as if you like. You know, people are speculating that he might be the next governor of Lagos State, but I think Seyi Tinubu has been able to play to his strength, maybe not to the beneficiary of the people, but I mean, to his own interest. And I think it's now the role of the president to then say that, you know, there are certain positions that should not be seen in the face of the public. The role of the first son of the republic is not a constitutional one. It might be ceremonial, but then again, we need to water it down because, again, Nigeria runs a presidential federalism. We are not running a royal system of government or a monarchical system of government. So I think, you know, that part should then be downplayed. But, you know, being the son of the president does not hurt anyone. I mean, it's whether or not we like it, it will be spoken about in various ways. Some might be true, some might not be true, but you just have to give it to him. I think he has played it to his strength. Whatever the rumors,
well,
whichever
it depends
is
on
true,
which strength you're
we hope to
referring
see in
to.
2025.
Well,
what did you say?
It depends on the strength you are referring to. And even President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had on occasion mentioned that his son shouldn't have been at the FEC meeting where there was a picture of him there. But time won't permit us to go through all the names on this list. But very quickly, we have Nigerians who have remained talkable throughout the year 2024 that we weren't able to touch on, like Chidima Adechina, who became a worldwide sensation, doing us proud, going all the way to becoming runner-up. You can see the beautiful pictures of her at Miss Universe, the farthest Nigeria has ever been in that competition. You also have other personalities like Dele Farotimi, who has finally been released from detention. A prominent activist was in prison and he's out now. Other people that made this list that we didn't have time to talk about include Emma Sanusi Lamido. And then you also have to look at some of the political squabbles like Fubara versus Wike. They dominated the headlines, River State, the politics. And then when you look at the price of petrol, the availability of petrol, you have to talk about Dangote and NNPC. And that's all that we can take of the most talked about Nigerians in 2024. Thank you very much, Nuruddin Hassan Olanrewaju, for your contributions on Rubbin Minds.
Thank you.
We'll now
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. We'll now go on a quick break, and when we return, it's all about the lingo of 2024. Stay with us. Welcome back to Rubbin Minds. Now, on this episode, we've looked at the most talked about individuals, and then we also looked at the top 10 events that shaped 2024. And this show won't be complete if we don't look at the challenges, we don't look at the trends, we don't look at the lingo 2024 gave us. So much steeze, so much composure, remaining very demure and very mindful. Joining us for this lively conversation is Osato Idike Edopai, a media personality. Lovely to have you on Rubbin Minds.
Lovely to be here, Isabella.
So let's jump right into it. I think when we started the year 2024, one of the slangs that really just took over Nigerians was no grief for anybody. Like, this is the year where no grief for anybody. Do you feel that 2024 has been that year that Nigerians did not grieve for anyone, whether in politics, in football, in arts, in music? What do you make of it?
You know, I think one of my favorite things about being Nigerian is Nigerian excellence. There's just a level of, you know, doggedness that we have. And I think at the start of the year, it was in January, I think, when the trend became a thing. No grief for anybody. Everybody thought, you've been too combative and so on. But I think it was more about assertiveness. It was a great start to the year. And you look at everything that happened through the course of the year, a lot of people achieved really big things. A lot of Nigerians soared, whether in entertainment, in sports, in politics to a degree. Yes, there were challenges that we faced as a nation, but largely it's the end of the year and we're still standing. So I think to a degree it was a pretty successful trend.
Yes, I think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about the assertiveness. Like, this is our year. This is the year that, despite anything happening, we're going to succeed, right? Won't grieve for failure. When you look at the challenges that have rocked social media, I mean, the Gwagwa challenge, Gwagwa. I mean, did you do that challenge? Like, it was everywhere, literally.
So I don't have the best rhythm, so I don't dance like that, especially in front of a camera. But no, it was fun. It was a good way. I think there were so many positives to the challenge itself. It was bringing back an old song that people had forgotten about. It was highlighting the performer, the artist behind the song. He's what, in the 90s or so, the plight he was facing. It was drawing attention to helping him out. It also just shows the power of content creators now in an entertainment space, having to set the agenda for discourse amongst us. So it was good. I mean, Brain Jotter started it on TikTok, and just to see everybody using it, even outside of Nigeria, such a big deal. It was a fun, clean challenge, and everybody loves that. Kids could participate, parents got into it, politicians got into it, religious people got into it. So it was one of my favorites.
Businesses got into it too as well. Yes, a great one, and I love the fact that they gave honor to whom honor is due. Like, it wasn't just, you know, we'll make all this money from content creation and not give back to the source. Now, when you think about 2024, you know, something that really trended on social media is T-Pain, and it's not the musician. Like, he kept wondering, like, I'm trending, I'm going viral in Nigeria, T-Pain, but it wasn't his own T-Pain, it was our own T-Pain, which is President
Tinubu. That was interesting. I woke up one morning and I saw T-Pain at the top of the trends table on X, and I mean, I work in media, so I immediately had to investigate, like, did the real T-Pain drop a new song? Is he making a comeback? I know he's a gamer now, so what's happening there? And obviously, I think it's just our way of coping in this country. You know, I mean, over time when we began to use it a bit more often, you got people in the presidency saying, oh, we shouldn't call him T-Pain, he's doing his best. But look, it's our way of highlighting the sort of challenges we're facing. And Nigerians like to tackle difficulty with some humor, right? So I think it was a pretty clean, fun way to say, this thing, economy tough. T-Pain is the cause, and so on and so on. So, yeah, I was shocked that it became a thing, but if we're being honest, it's a pretty catchy nickname.
Yeah, right? And I think it has come to stay because you still see it, even if it might not be topping the list of X, you still see people refer to, like, this economist T-Pain. I wish you could do this, but T-Pain, you know, it has characterized the year 2024 for a lot of Nigerians. Now, to something that's a bit more, should I say, composed, with a bit more steez and composure. Like, how did that just, like, a word that doesn't even give that just came into our lingo, and everybody's like, I'm maintaining steez, I'm maintaining composure. Like, how far?
I mean, it's interesting to note that the word steez isn't particularly new, right? So it's a combination of, I believe, style and ease. So it's something that people have used, I think in the 90s even, just to say, you know, if you are stylish and you're not too fussy with it, you know, you have steez. And, you know, it rhymes a bit of composure, just putting yourself together, you know. And I think that's what we do well as Nigerians. If we see a Nigerian, we're confident, pretty stylish people, pretty well turned out every time. Every chance we get will turn out really well. So those two combinations, I really loved it. And as a person myself, it's a thing I strive to always do, have steez and be composed. So I think it just really encapsulated what we are as a country and as Nigerians. I really liked it. I like that one particularly.
You like that one? Yeah. But were you very mindful this year? Were you very demure? Were you?
It was harder to be mindful and demure when my car had some overheating problems on Lekki Ekpe. But otherwise, I think I maintained my mindfulness, and I was pretty demure through most of the year.
So some people see it as demure, like it's no longer demure. You know, I feel for parents whose children are like demures, and yet like everybody's like, why is my name all over social media? Like, why? No, it's demure, not demure.
It must have been a very tough time for them at school, I'm sure. But you know, looking at how the trend started as well, from I think it was an American TikToker who pulled that up, and seeing it pick up and seeing her life change as a result. I think she got some money off of it as well. And just see two simple words. Just, first of all, it's not a very popular word that people use in everyday lingo. So I say, you know, good stuff that people are expanding their vocabulary as well. I like that very much. But yeah, I generally like the trend, and, you know, it had people, you know, position themselves in a way where, you know, same with steez and composure. You're put together in public. Beat the mirror. You do the mirror about it. You don't do any. There's no gra. And those are the sort of things that I like. So
yeah.
I like that too.
I actually use that being mindful and demure to an event I hosted, and I used that as the voice, and it actually worked very well. Yes. So I think it was quite a successful challenge. Now, another one that polarized people, especially people who are very big on skin issues, is the play on bleach, which is Esther bleach. So like, did Esther bleach, or are you saying it's established?
Well,
so some people were like, look, I'm not going to jump on that because you're telling people to go bleach, but it's actually a play on established.
I think they're taking themselves a bit too seriously, for being honest. It's just a fun. It's basically saying, and I'm very mindful of the pun. Yeah, I'm very mindful of the pun of what I'm going to say next. It's basically to show people's glow up, right? I don't mean that they bleached and started like glowing up. It's just you go through a stage of life where sakpa and all these other factors are hitting you, T-pain, and you work hard, you do well for yourself, and you like to show that you're successful. Now again, Nigerians, we like to show off. So as Esther bleached, she became an established person in society and had to show it off. I like that too. I like when people show their progress in life and show how well their hard work has paid off for them.
And like you said, all these challenges cut across different walks of life, politicians, religious people, the lay people, and I have to go back to one that also became quite controversial because it was from a religious body. I am a chosen. Are you a chosen?
My God, yes. I see that one. I was a bit confused on how to play on that. But again, I think it just stems from the fact that we don't take ourselves too seriously in Nigeria. And you watch, for example, a television broadcast of a church, and it's strange to most people. If you're not a part of that congregation in that instant, for most people, it's a strange way for a group of people to behave, to yell those 4 words, I'm a chosen, I'm a chosen. So people sort of jumped on that. And again, as with everything in this country, if things are a bit too tough or too difficult to have a conversation about, you need to add some humor, right? So when you go on about and say, whatever difficulty that's going through, if you are facing hunger, tell your hunger, I'm a chosen, and the hunger will supposedly disappear even if you don't work out. So I think it's just one of the ways we cope in this country, and I like that too. And I'm sure it did wonderful for their congregation and the numbers on their social media.
If anything, it's definitely shone the light on that particular congregation, what they're about, even though they weren't so happy with the newfound popularity, because some people, well, like you said, you're a bit on the fence with that one, but sort of like the established one as well. This December period, let me ask you, what word, captures Dirty December? What word did this season give us?
I mean, you were right. Talawa. I think we're all outside.
Italawa, right?
I mean, if you've driven in the past couple of weeks in Lagos and spent time in traffic, like we all decided this December we're all outside. Yes, the cost of fuel is high. All these other economic indices aren't very favorable to us right now. Doesn't matter. We're going to end the year with a bang. And I think that's what a lot of people decided to do. We've been outside since the second week of December. As soon as offices started their Christmas parties, it became a riot. I think it sort of chilled around Christmas and Boxing Day, but as we end the year now, we know what's going to happen this coming week.
And who's to blame for this? Like those people, like what are they called?
The IJGBs, you mean?
You said it.
I mean, I don't know if we're organized enough in Lagos to take advantage of all the opportunities that a lot of tourists coming in over a couple of weeks, what it does for our ecosystem. I don't think we take good advantage of it. But if we see what Ghana did with the year of the return, and they took that Dirty December mantle from us for about a couple of years, and then they had a bit of baton with our economy. So everybody came to Lagos this December, which is a good win for us to start with. But I think we just need to be more mindful on how we're putting together our act and make sure that we actually take advantage economically from all these things happening. Because again, next December, we're going to be here. There's going to be traffic. But what can we do over the next 12 months to ease the pain for every other person? And, everybody should enjoy the period as well. And
I think for me, the latest one is Oblé. This is season of Oblé, of enjoyment. And that's how we're going to finish 2024, because it has been a tough year. Thank you so much, Osato, I mean, we started off looking at No Grief for Anybody,
Yes.
which was, you know, how we started off the year 2024. We looked at T-Pain, Established Challenge,
Yeah.
Gwa, Demure, Steez, Composure,
Yeah.
Very Mindful, I'm a Chosen. And I think shout out to the IJBs, JBs, like, thank you,
Yeah.
but Oble.
Everybody can go now.
Thank you, Osato Edike Edopa, a media personality. That was a great conversation.
Thank you for
and
having
wishing
me.
you a happy new year
Happy
in
New Year as well.
2025. And that's where we wrap up this conversation. Happy 2025. It's really been a pleasure having you on Rubbin Minds on 2024. My name is Isabella Adediji. Do enjoy the rest of your afternoon. See you in the new year.